With Warzone 2.0 coming out in about 2 weeks and this year's map being heavily rumored to be the biggest we've had yet, I thought it would be a good idea to really dive in and understand how Sniper Glint works in Modern Warfare 2. One of the major differences in sniper play between this year's Call of Duty and Modern Warfare 2019 is that almost all sniper optics in Modern Warfare 2 give off some sort of sniper glint, as opposed to MW 2019 where only the sniper and larger thermal scopes did. Additionally, this year's Call of Duty introduced the concept of varying sniper glint sizes. Right now, we have 5 sizes ranging from very small, small, medium, large, and very large. Whereas in the last Modern Warfare, all of the glint sizes were all the same size. All of these choices adds an extra layer of strategy to loadout making, so it'll be interesting to see which of these sights become popular amongst the player base throughout the year. Now, I know it might be a bit hard to compare these different scopes when shown separately, so let's throw them all together side by side to make it easier. So from this 100-meter test, I'd say we could split our different scopes into 3 tiers. We can see that if we're trying to keep a low profile, that the very small category of scopes is a clear winner and significantly better than the rest. The small and medium scopes are pretty similar to each other, but are a bit better than the large and very large scopes. If you're wondering why I have standard here, that's simply because I was testing what kind of scope the default scope for the MCPR had, and from here it looks like it has a large sniper glint. Now, in a normal game setting, our enemy's not always going to be scoped in on us first like this. They'll most likely be running and not ADS'd. So let's take a look at what these different scopes look like from that point of view. From here, in this 70-meter test, we can see that with the very small to medium scopes, there's essentially no scope glint, and with the large and very large categories, well, they're pretty damn bright. But I wasn't really happy with the results of this test because there's no way that these 3 categories of scopes all just behave the same, so I dug a little bit deeper and this is what I found. So within the different categories of sights, there's a distance limit for the different scopes. So at 100 FOV, for the very small attachments, the glint becomes noticeable at 30 meters, and once you get any further than that, there's essentially no glint. For the small category, they become noticeable at 40 meters, medium 60 meters, and for large and very large, long story short, my best guess is about 300 meters. Here in Ground War, you can see the scope glint at around 230 meters, and it's struggling a bit, but definitely visible. And in private matches, you can spectate, and at whatever distance this is, the glint stops showing. So because of this, I do believe that there is a limit, but I don't know exactly what it is, and I'm not going to waste any more time trying to test in Ground War because it's just very difficult with lots of people trying to level weapons and not being able to have ghosts right away. You can imagine it's not a fun time. Now, you may have noticed that I keep on specifying that what I'm testing was at 100 FOV, and that's because FOV does play a major factor in the distances a non-ADS player can see scope glint. So for example, a medium scope at 100 FOV has a visible range of 60 meters. Now, if you bring the FOV up to 120, that brings the visible range of medium scopes all the way down to 40 for that non-ADS player. Likewise, if you bring the FOV down to 80, then the visible range gets boosted to 85 meters. So I hope that makes sense. Basically, it scales up and down between the different sight sizes, and since most of the player base plays between 80 and 120 FOV, I thought testing at 100 would be a good middle ground. And if you want to do a rough estimate for your specific FOV that you play at, simply take my numbers and add or subtract roughly a meter per degree. But yeah, to summarize what we found, here's a little chart that I made if you want to take a screenshot. And again, for the large and very large scopes, that range there goes way past the map and would actually extend the length of the map 2 more times. And remember, just to be extra clear, that these are ranges for when one player is sniping and the other does not have their gun ADS'd. Okay, now let's run through some quick questions and do a little bit of myth busting regarding scope glint. Like, does scope glint work if you're looking through a window? And the answer is yes it does. Does scope glint change if you're using a hybrid optic? So for example, when you switch to the red dot, does your glint go away or maybe get smaller? And it looks like the answer to that is no. It stays the same across both sight options. Does scope glint have a distance limit? Other than not being able to see it when not ADS'd like we talked about, from what I can see, it looks like it doesn't have a limit. Here's a clip from Ground War, and you can see their scope glint here. And we can see that they are over 500 meters away. So maybe at a very far distance you wouldn't be able to see it, but I don't think so. Does the spotter scope have any type of scope glint? It does not. Is there any way to reduce scope glint? So I tried to mess around and see if I could find any bugs with perks like with cold-blooded, and I found nothing, but I did find a bugged scope. Well, a few actually. So the Ares Clear Shot, which is a small scope, has no sniper glint in the game as of right now, and it'll get fixed eventually, but yeah, enjoy it while it lasts. It has 7 times magnification, which isn't bad at all. In terms of other bug scopes, these first 4 thermal scopes say that they give off small sniper glint, but they're behaving like medium attachments, which makes them a bit worse. And the MCPR 300 9.5x says that it's a medium scope, which seems great for its value, but when tested it behaves exactly like a large scope, so just know that. Next question, is scope glint delayed at all? Sometimes people get sniped and don't see a glint, so this gets asked a good amount, and from what I can tell it looks like there's no delay. In fact, if we slow this down here, it looks like the enemy sees the scope glint slightly before you're fully ADS. But getting sniped by someone with no glint is definitely a thing. So why does this happen? So 2 possible reasons. One, if the sniping player is right next to an obstacle, sometimes it does not behave correctly and no glint is shown. For example, here our enemy is scoped in on us, but they're right next to the car and there's no glint, same as here. And the second reason is that it's just inconsistent, or maybe, and I'm really just guessing here, but maybe it's like a scrapped feature where the direction of sunlight matters and it's kind of like left over in the game. I don't know, but in all the instances that I found glint to be inconsistent, I'm always looking away from the sun, or it's not strong when it happens. For some reason here on farm 18, the enemy gives no scope glint, as well as these other spots. I've tried to figure out why the glint doesn't work in these spots and replicate it to others, but I can't figure out a consistent reason why it's happening. Moving on, when does your enemy see your glint in terms of how far away you're looking from them? So for example, if I'm looking away, obviously there's no glint, but once we get closer, even though I'm not looking directly at them, the glint starts to show up for them. So for this, it's easier to use the compass, and basically whenever you're within 10 degrees away from the target, then they will see it. 10 degrees on both sides, so it's a 20-degree cone of vision, and this works both horizontally and vertically. This means that scope glint is detectable by more and more area the further you go. Now normally the vertical cone of vision doesn't really come into play much, but in Warzone, if sniping on a rooftop, it's something to keep in mind because that cone of vision will eventually reach the ground even if you're not really looking at it. Oh, and if you were wondering, for the cone of vision, scope size does not matter. They all act the same, as in they all have that 20-degree horizontal and vertical window. The next thing I want to go over is the setting that will help you spot snipers much easier. That specific setting is going to be having the ADS field of view set to independent. So let's say we're running and get shot and look over to where the shot came from. With this setting on affected, at this distance we wouldn't see anything, but once we change it to independent, we can easily tell where the shot came from. As we get towards the end of the video, before I go, let's quickly go over what the best sight is for sniping in Warzone. So personally, I don't have a specific single best one that I prefer, but based off of what we talked about today, I'm going to try to stick to scopes that give off a medium glint or less. The medium scopes give pretty good value, and being able to have the sniper glint a bit more hidden from players is a big plus. The Luca Bandera and the FTAC Locust seem pretty good. The Locust gets 11.5 magnification and it's a medium scope, which is great. Of course, on day 1, if it's still bugged, I'm gonna try to get the most out of the Ares Clear Shot because of the no glint. You get this sight by getting the SO 14 to level 12. But yeah, on day 1 of Warzone, that's kind of an overview of what I'll be using. As always, let me know what questions you have in the comments. I'll do my best to get back to you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.